Greetings, faithful viewer. The day has finally come. I am now down to my final strand of hair, the last Boy Scout. For years he has fought gallantly, but now it is time for him to go. Brace yourself. I finally made it! I'm bald! Which means legally I can now review every PS1 game featuring the likeness of Bruce Willis, one of the greatest baldies of our time. Which reminds me of today's sponsor, Keeps Hair Loss Treatment. Did you know male pattern baldness begins in most men in their 30s? That's why you should use my promo code PSYCHBITCH Still Bald! Yeah! Remember in the first Die Hard when John McClane stepped barefoot on shattered glass? Fun fact, did you know gaming? Those were actually PS1 jewel cases, the most destructive material known to man. This shit has never been able to hold together, which is why for years I've had to keep my copy of our first Bruce Willis game in this case of Buzz Lightyear and Star Command, which is also shattered to shit. The Die Hard Trilogy for PS1.
Hold tight, this is gonna get bumpy!
Die Hard Trilogy is a pretty interesting game in that instead of being a straightforward retelling of the movies, we get three distinct arcade experiences that more so aim to capture the essence of each one. The first Die Hard is this run-and-gun third-person shooter with each level being a different floor of Nakatomi Tower as you crawl your way to the very top by killing just about everyone in your path. And maybe rescuing some hostages, I don't know, maybe don't get in the way, you ever thought about that?
Yeah! Eat this!
McClane here is pretty vulnerable, especially at first. You have a dodge roll that's real handy for quickly getting behind cover. You constantly have to make use of the radar to hunt down these Gruber boys one by one, with each stage getting more and more intense. You do have unlimited ammo on your pistol though, which does kind of make it easy to get some real cheap kills where you can just keep marking enemies by firing into the shadows thanks to that handy radar. And these enemies essentially have no object permanence. You have the SWAT team and the FBI having a dick measuring contest outside. Meanwhile, 30 terrorists went to go powder their noses and not one came out of it alive.
I wonder what is taking him so long. I wonder what is.
Cheap tactics like these will only get you so far though. Eventually you're gonna need to find some extra firepower.
Ho ho ho! I've got a machine gun!
One kind of neat mechanic is sometimes you'll see these timed hostage scenarios pop up on your radar, some at the very beginning of the level, giving you mere seconds to sprint over like a madman before it's too late.
Bad guy!
See, I care. Exploring these floors to get body armor and health packs and different weapons becomes so essential. You get an explosive shotgun.
Bad guy!
Different grenades, you start being able to blitz through these levels like crazy. It really encapsulates the feeling of being a single schmuck on an absolute warpath, scraping by with the skin of his polygonal ass. It really made me feel like Bruce. Oh, also you get these bonus stages where, I don't know, I guess you could help some of the hostages escape on the roof or whatever and be with their family and loved ones on Christmas. Okay. Jesus Christ, how many people are at this Christmas party?
You know, when you're a rookie, they can teach you everything about being a cop except how to live with a mistake. I shot a kid.
Carl Winslow, I've set 30 people on fire in the last 5 minutes. One funny little detail is sometimes the hostages will actually be terrorists in disguise and they'll double cross you faster than you could say Clay. Bill Clay. See, you can't trust any of them. Oh, and if things weren't insane enough, after you clear a floor, you get 30 seconds to find the exit and disarm these elevator bombs. And with some of these later stages getting pretty damn huge, you'll have to pray you don't get Brucey's barefoot stuck on this stupid plant at the last second. Seriously, who puts up? You know what's pretty disappointing was the last level. It's literally just your standard level, if not one of the easiest ones. There's really nothing special about it. Given that the premise of the game was you working your way up this tower, I was really hoping at the top we'd get a final showdown with Hans Gruber like the movie, where we'd poetically see him fall past all the floors we blitzed through, but no. There is a level boss, but it's basically no different than any of the other ones. Die Hard 2, Die Harder. That's not a joke, that's the real title. This time a bunch of terrorists have taken control of an airport, but one thing they didn't count on is PS1 Bruce Willis. Here, Die Hard 2's been turned into a really fun light gun game, which, you know what? Sure, it's a kind of a great way to condense a bunch of non-stop action into a game. That does mean they have to take certain liberties though, like you don't get to play Bruce Willis riding a bike or having a fight on a luggage conveyor like it's Toy Story 2 Toy Harder. And while you can use a regular PlayStation controller, ew, what we're really gonna need are some special peripherals. What, you think I sold them all? Now, probably the most popular of PS1 light gun controllers is the Namco GunCon. But given that this game came out a year before it existed, you're gonna need to track down one of the 100 random third-party light gun controllers that should be compatible. God damn, were these levels so much fun. If you ever played any light gun game like Time Crisis, this feels just as satisfying. You got tons of different weapons to find, shotguns that make enemies erupt into geysers of blood. You get grenades and rocket launchers that basically kill everyone on screen, and also, I don't know, more hostages to save, I guess. It very loosely follows the plot of the movie. Like if Die Harder was just hours of seizure-inducing gunfire right when John McClane stepped foot on the airport. It is kind of neat to see what they ripped from the film though, like crawling on the wing of the plane. Ooh, they even managed to do the iconic ejector seat part because of course they had to. Holy shit, you even get the snowmobile part? Wait, maybe this is Modern Warfare 2. I really don't have any gripes with this. This is basically a perfect light gun game. This could have easily been like the entire game if they wanted to. It's that good. Like, I guess there was one or two times where visually it just wasn't clear what exactly I was supposed to shoot at or win, but for the most part, this was fantastic. I do feel bad for whatever kid in 1996 had to play this with a D-pad, because that's just cruel. But wait, what do you do if you're one of those kids that had one of those PS1s with the LCD screen where light guns aren't gonna work? Well, thankfully, we got ourselves the PlayStation Mouse, a pretty decent tool for better accuracy when revisiting certain PS1 ports like Quake 2. But this was also a pretty common control option for PS1 light gun games. And for Die Harder, yeah, you get way better accuracy, duh, but come on, that's just not as fun. There's a reason I keep a PS1 light gun taped to my back at all times, and it's because you never know when you'll need to play this dope-ass Die Hard 2 mode. Die Hard with a vengeance! Is a movie where John McClane is back, and boy does he hate everybody. And he's teaming up with Samuel Jackson and driving around New York doing little mind games and jigsaw puzzles under a time limit, or else Jeremy Irons is gonna set off a bunch of bombs all over the city. It's perfect for a game. Now, to capture that, you are speeding through a city in a crazy taxi, ramming into bombs before they go off. Also, they could blow up anyway and kill everybody. I think what I really like about John McClane is he's sort of an everyman. He's a hero who genuinely cares and looks out for people. Not that guy though. Or them. Or any of these people. A lot of people are gonna die.
I fucking love this mode.
Sure, it can be janky and you have this weird collision detection that's all over the place, but man, it makes up for it by giving you this high-octane, over-the-top racer where you gotta learn the best routes in the city. You gotta collect extra time and speed boost power-ups. You have these launch pads that just detonate and send your cap flying higher than Corbin Dallas. It's so ridiculous. It's New York and nobody gives a shit. You have the EMT power-up where an ambulance will just show up and ram through waves of traffic to clear you a path. The time constraints with each objective just start getting stricter. You have to really lock in, and it becomes almost essential to track down these parking lots to switch out your cap for a faster whip. Every single millisecond starts to matter. Losing by a few frames isn't just brutal, it's an absolute nightmare as you begin to witness Judgment Day. Oh wow, look at that game over screen. And as these levels get harder, get ready to never forget over and over and over again. That's why it can be frustrating when you do get objectives like having to ram and destroy enemy vehicles, sort of Simpsons hit and run style. Except a lot of times the damage for some reason won't register if you don't give them enough space first between hits. Like I am slamming this wiener over and over and it still ain't taking no damage. Regardless, for what's a driving mode in a variety pack of gameplay types in 1996, this still controls and handles remarkably well. One thing I love are the shoulder buttons here, let you do these instant quick turns no matter how fast you're going. It's especially fun because it keeps the momentum of these chases at top speed. I love it. So that's 3 explosive games all in one that perfectly capture the vibe of each Die Hard film. What's best is that you can dive right into whichever one happens to strike your mood, whether it's a running gun, a light gun game, or a crazy taxi Carmageddon. And of course, with anything this successful, the only reasonable thing to do is to take a page straight out of live-action Flintstones, which is how we got a sequel, Die Hard Trilogy 2. Viva Rock Vegas.
All day is gunplay. Bodies going out the window, touching down on the runway. More harder than part 2. This is the Hard Trilogy. Save the hostages without the villains killing me. And don't mistake me for the enemy.
With no more Die Hard movies to pull from yet, this one tells a brand new original action-packed story of John McClane somehow getting caught up in another terrorist plot, this time in the streets of Vegas. Kind of a bold move to try an entirely new story here, when it's typically easier to build something around existing source material, especially when the first game set such a high bar. I also don't know if they were able to get Bruce Willis's likeness here or what, because who is this? I mean, I guess he kind of looks like John if he was wearing pantyhose on his head. Made of flesh? Yet again, we get the same trifecta of gameplay types. So let's start off with these on-foot missions. Well, first, gone is the radar or the sporadic run-and gun style. Instead, this plays like pretty much every other PS1 third-person shooter. It's not bad, per se. It's serviceable. You have a very generous auto-aim, but McClane controls pretty stiff, like he can't even jump or do his dodge roll anymore. He's now just like the guy who stands and shoots. And you also get this first-person view to stand harder, which lets you manually aim or take a closer look at this guy sitting on his little cozy chair. Boy, he sure looks cozy. Oops. First level, you're in the middle of this prison breakout. It's fine. It's kind of generic. Like, they siphoned all the soul out of the first game's on-foot missions and traded it for a much safer, blander, and stiffer type of design. Oh well, on to the next mission.
Getting too old for this.
Oh yeah, the key difference with Die Hard Trilogy 2 is rather than having you approach these three gameplay styles separately, they're now interspersed in the campaign. But see, I was playing this on my PS3, which unfortunately can't take PS1 accessories or peripherals, so I had to take this bad boy to the PS2 and create this little bomb thread of wires to capture and play these light gun sections at the same time. Anything for Viva Rock Vegas. Now, in practice, I'd usually welcome this type of variety from alternating gameplay types. Plenty of action games have done this stuff very well. Here, though, it just ends up feeling jarring and pales in comparison to the first on like every front. Here's why it doesn't work. In the first game, there was continuity between these stages. Weapons and pickups carried over to the next level, and you had to actually take that into consideration during your playthrough. Little things like should you enter this floor of the Nakatomi building without making sure you had full health, body armor, and a machine gun? Should you use your rockets and grenades on this light gun stage, or save it for one of the more intense sections? Or even Die Hard with a Vengeance levels gave you these limited speed boost power-ups, which in some stages were the difference between life and... These may seem like gory, stupid, explosion-packed, smooth brain games, but they had an element of strategy to them. Die Hard Trilogy 2 does offer an arcade mode, which lets you thankfully do the traditional approach of these gameplay styles separately, but that doesn't work either. Since nothing really carries over anymore, and since the arcade style has sort of been done away with, you're just playing what's clearly disjointed missions stitched together. Like, if you want to play this game as a bland PS1 third-person shooter, I mean, I guess you can. The only real utility to this is just being able to play the light gun game if you want to. But switching between these different gameplay types just kind of serves as a reminder of how inconsistent each one is. Like the on-foot sections, the driving missions have been sapped of almost all their charm. Yeah, you do have a lot more open space to work with, and the stages are way more linear, but there's no real strategy or challenge to planning your route. It's all mindless and basic now. Almost all your objectives here now are doing the stupid hit-and-run hot dog car. Even the light gun levels, which, you know, should be an easy home run. It's hard to reinvent the wheel with something like this, just doesn't reach the heights of the first game. For whatever reason now, a lot of the action is now framed at a distance. Playing this on a smaller CRT must suck, because even on a decently sized set, you'll be squinting at these enemies. Whereas Die Harder found a good balance between up-close and ranged combat. And the flow of these levels, too, just kind of have you backtracking through the same hallways to a point where it can get pretty repetitive. Unlike the first, Die Hard Trilogy 2 does let you use the Namco gun con, which does make for this really accurate and smooth experience, but the problem is even your weapon pickups just aren't that fun anymore. The machine gun will lag and stutter, the shotgun feels slow and weak, everything just feels way more toned down and unremarkable. It's still a decent light gun game, but in that case, I'd just rather go play Die Hard Trilogy 1. It's weird, it feels like every gameplay type was repurposed to be more palatable, but it just makes everything feel super run-of-the-mill.
Games Master says if you only buy one game this year, make it Die Hard Trilogy. The best action game you can own. the Die Hard Trilogy.
Die Hard Trilogy 1 was released in 1996, when developers were still very much finding their footing in how to approach 3D game design. And it's that creativity and lack of established rules that kind of led to these very unique gameplay styles. Trilogy 2, meanwhile, came out in 2000, and it's like enough progress had been made in that time to ensure that each mode plays like their most cookie-cutter, bland, by-the-book renditions. You'd think with having Vegas as a setting, it'd make for some pretty creative levels, or just a visually striking backdrop at the very least, but no, it practically adds nothing. Most of the time you're in these gray, drab locations. I commend them for attempting to fashion this all into an original Die Hard game, but it's like, it doesn't even really feel like Die Hard. It just ends up coming across more like a Bond game or some weird, obscure Tom Clancy title. Honestly, just go with the first one instead.
Vegas, what a town.
Now, there comes a time in every growing boy's life in the 2000s where you probably flip to a little channel called Spike TV, where you'd find yourself an array of high-concept philosophical questions being asked, like,
How big do boobs have to be to crush a beer can?
I've seen a woman crush a can with her breath.
You could probably also catch an airing of The Fifth Element, the sci-fi action-adventure movie starring Bruce Willis. I swear to God, this was on TV almost every day for a time. I'd catch glimpses of it over the years while channel surfing, watching different scenes without context, and I don't think I even realized some of these were for the same movie. Even when I finally sat down and watched it start to finish, there's this inherent strangeness to it all that just kind of makes it seem like you somehow just narrowly missed something. It's so inventive that surely a tie-in PS1 game is bound to be a hit. You know, I take a look at a lot of licensed games and movie tie-ins that get bad or mediocre reviews, and often I'm able to find some silver lining or see just exactly what the developers were aiming for. Sometimes I even find myself what happens to be a pretty good game. Here? No. This is easily one of the worst games I've ever played. It's a nightmare even from the... Oh my God. What? Is PS1 Chris Tucker? Bruce Willis controls like a goddamn boat. He's got this insane turn radius, and of course there's these platforming sections where this disgustingly stiff jump, it almost seems like you're about to hear some bones crunch. The combat is bullet spongy and gross and unsatisfying and unconcerned. A random scientist bystander shouldn't take this many bullets to kill. I think if we stop here, it'd be a pretty bad game as is, but it's when you have to control stupid-ass Lilu that really elevates this to a historic caliber of awful. Get ready to flip over dozens of enemies as you run for dear life, and without any actual camera control, you get trapped in these horrific platforming scenarios where you can't even see your surroundings or position yourself, because you don't even know for sure where the floor beneath you ends. Eventually you do gotta square up against enemies, and the camera shifts to like this fighting game Tekken perspective for a split second where you gotta beat up Space Carl Winslow. What the hell, man? I thought we were on the same side. The combat is just as clunky and stiff as the movement, and with this brutal life system, these levels become so painful. Even with grenades, Lilu is so useless and susceptible to damage, I legitimately do not know how some of these sections were meant to be possible. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Oh, later levels, you do have to alternate between Lilu and Corbin Dallas in a pathetic attempt to pan out the length. Even when you do get more flashy weapons like this electro gun, it still can't fix just how boring and stiff and grueling these levels are. It's unbearable. I love how the FMVs from the movie are so compressed, they legitimately look like actual pre-rendered PS1 cutscenes. This game put me in such a bad mood that even the charming weirdness of the movie just comes across as like irritating and punchable. Like, ooh, I gotta find the Zorg building and find the Zorg key. Shut up. If I was like a game reviewer from like 2008, I'd throw you in the toilet right now. I'd do it, but I'm not gonna do that. But as if to answer for the sins of The Fifth Element, we get one last Bruce Willis game on PS1. Not based on any movie or property, but an entirely original game starring the man himself in his most out-of-pocket role since voicing Spike the dog.
I play Spike the dog.
It's Apocalypse
by Acme.
This is such a bizarre game. You have Bruce Willis lending his likeness to a PS1 sci-fi shooter.
Can't we just be friends?
No, we can't!
Welcome to Apocalypse, a hot new game from Activision that is the first to texture map a real person's face onto a CG model's body.
Welcome to paradise, kid.
And that face belongs to action movie star Bruce Willis.
Today you see Norman Reedus or Guillermo del Toro in a video game and you go, okay. But to see such a high-profile celebrity like Bruce Willis grace the cover of an entirely new video game in 1998? That was really unprecedented, and perhaps even more astonishingly, the game is really good. What we have here is a really fun twin-stick shooter taking place in this grunge rendition of the future, fittingly akin to movies like Fifth Element and 12 Monkeys. An evil scientist has unleashed the Four Horsemen, and it's up to PS1 Bruce Willis to escape prison and stop Armageddon. This one was developed by Neversoft, the same devs famously behind the original Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. They also made that sick-ass Spider-Man game, and I remember playing through that and thinking, wow, how did a team known for a bunch of skateboarding games get so good at pulling off all these fun action set pieces? It's because this shit was light work to them, that's why. This game is nuts. You're speeding as Brucey through tons of carnage and destruction, watching your environment crumble around you. An insane amount of shit just ends up happening on screen. It gets so hectic, but it's like a controlled chaos, given the gameplay is so simple. You constantly have to be moving forward, and typical to Neversoft's design, the controls are so ergonomic and streamlined, it makes this pretty short game into this absolute joyride.
These guys need a little bit more lead in their diet.
You get a crazy arsenal of futuristic, what the hell even is that, weapons, different lasers, flamethrowers, homing missiles. You also have these bombs that basically act as a fuck off button, destroying every nearby enemy on screen. And that comes really in handy when you're just trying to vibe out.
I'll see you in hell!
Oh, and if this game couldn't be any cooler, some levels just start playing music videos at you. See? This is what 3D gaming was all about. This is why the PlayStation won that generation. Where else could you control Bruce Willis twerking to System of a Down? You can easily beat this game in like a single sitting, but it's so good you'll want to. The boss fights here are crazy. You're fighting Scooby-Doo and Cyber Chase. Another is one of your exes mid-concert. It's so over the top and stylish. I love how instead of being top-down, you have this very dynamic perspective here. Even the platforming, which easily could have been a total nightmare, ends up being pretty solid. Bruce has got this huge leap with enough room for course correction. I generally didn't have any issue here, save for 1 or 2 moments where the dynamic camera angle and jittering polygons did make it a little difficult to gauge the perspective, but those were really rare. About halfway in, I already knew this game was something pretty special, but by the time I got to this gorgeous graveyard level, I don't know, seeing the screen just sealed the deal. This might really end up being one of my personal favorites.
Nice polygons.
As far as Bruce Willis's performance goes, you obviously have his likeness, and even though he only has a handful of recorded lines, he seems to be having fun here.
It's hero time.
No way.
It's hero time.
On behalf of Beelzebub, welcome to hell.
Oh, and of course the last level has you storming the White House to essentially fight a Demon Bowser as the stage collapses around you like it's Mario 64. What? For a game so solid by such a prolific developer that just happens to star Bruce Willis, you really don't hear much about it today. Sure, celebs like The Rock and Vin Diesel would go on to grace the covers of their games with their bald ass, but let's face it, they ain't beating our boy Brucey.